If you have the courage to hear the full nightmare, stay till the end. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to uncover more terrifying stories like this. Only those who listen till the end will understand the full horror that awaits, and I promise, it will haunt every corner of your mind. The forest loomed before them, a suffocating wall of shadows and twisted trees, their gnarled branches scraping the gray sky like jagged claws. Moonlight fell in scattered shards, barely illuminating the uneven path that swallowed every footstep. The air was thick, stagnant, carrying a whisper of decay and something far worse, something alive. A group of friends, Mark, Lila, Jason, and Sophie, stood at the edge of the clearing, eyes wide, hearts hammering against their chests. They had come for adventure, a night of thrill in the infamous Ravenwood Forest, known for the disappearances that locals whispered about with trembling voices. "It's just stories," Mark said, forcing a grin, but the tremor in his jaw betrayed him. As they stepped onto the moss-covered trail, a sudden wind gust rattled the skeletal branches above. The sound was like the hiss of hundreds of serpents. Sophie shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Silence followed. But it was the kind that presses against your ears, a terrifying stillness that screams more than any noise could. Jason led the way, flashlights slicing weak beams into the oppressive darkness. Shadows leapt and twisted at the corners of their vision, always disappearing when they tried to focus. Then came the first whisper, soft, low, almost seductive, curling around their minds. "Don't come further." They froze. Lila's skin crawled. "Who's there?" she called, voice shaking. Only the forest answered, with a dry, rattling laugh that made their blood run cold. The path narrowed, trees pressing closer, roots rising like bony fingers. Mark stumbled over one, catching himself just before he fell. But something else fell, something that shouldn't have been there. A shadow detached itself from the forest, moving like liquid, too quick to follow, too close to ignore. Their flashlights flickered. For a brief, horrific second, they thought they saw a figure, impossibly tall, thin, wrapped in tattered, dark rags, eyes bulging, mouth stretched wide in a silent scream, teeth jagged like broken glass. They blinked. Nothing. A scream pierced the silence, but it wasn't one of theirs. It came from deeper within, echoing and stretching like it had been trapped for centuries. Jason's hands shook on the flashlight. We should go back," he stammered. But every step they took forward, the forest seemed to tighten, branches clawing at their skin, shadows darting just out of reach, and the whispers grew louder, insistent. "You shouldn't be here. You'll never leave." And just when they thought the terror had reached its peak, the ground beneath Sophie's foot shifted, and a rotten, hollow smell hit their noses, a sign that the forest wasn't done with them. Something waited, something patient, something hungry. The friends exchanged terrified glances, realizing, deep down, that tonight would not end in laughter. Tonight, Ravenwood Forest would begin to tell its story, and only those who survive will ever know the truth. The forest seemed alive now, breathing, shifting, closing in. Every snap of a twig sounded like a gunshot. Leaves rustled without wind, and shadows pooled unnaturally beneath twisted roots. Sophie clutched Lila's arm, eyes darting, trying to pierce the darkness, but the flashlight beams trembled with every heartbeat, flickering like dying fireflies. A whisper brushed past them again, closer this time, urgent. "Leave, or stay forever." Mark swallowed hard, voice dry. "It's just the wind," he said, but the quiver betrayed him. They reached a small clearing, pale moonlight spilling like a ghostly river. But the clearing wasn't empty. A figure crouched behind a broken tree, long limbs bent at impossible angles, ragged clothing hanging from its skeletal frame. Its eyes, large, unblinking, black, reflected the weak light. They froze. Jason stepped forward, trying to call out, but his voice caught in his throat. The creature tilted its head slowly, soundless, almost curious. Its mouth stretched unnaturally wide, revealing teeth jagged and glinting. A low, wet rasp came from it, like something tearing through old paper. Lila stumbled backward, tripping over a root. The creature didn't move, yet the air around it seemed heavier, pressing down like invisible hands. Suddenly, a low growl rumbled through the clearing. The friends spun, flashlight beams crossing over one another, trying to find the source, but the darkness had multiplied, every shadow now hiding something waiting. The forest seemed to inhale as they ran, long, deep breaths that made the trees sway without wind. Every step the friends took felt heavier, like the ground itself wanted to drag them down. The mist coiled tighter around their legs, pulling, slowing, clinging like cold, wet hands refusing to let go. Jason's flashlight bounced wildly, beams slicing in frantic arcs across the trees. "Keep moving," he shouted, voice cracking under the weight of terror. But the forest swallowed most of his words, leaving only thin, broken echoes drifting back toward them. Behind them, something moved. Not footsteps, but the absence of sound. A presence so heavy it made the silence ring like metal in their ears. Lila tripped again, nearly falling face first before Mark caught her. Her breaths came in sharp, ragged gasps. "It's right there," she sobbed. Sophie looked over her shoulder, instantly regretting it. The creature stood between the trees, tall and crooked, its long limbs swaying slightly. Its eyes, too pale, bulging circles, glowed faintly. Its head tilted once, twice, like it was studying them with morbid curiosity. And then it stepped forward. Still no sound. Not a crunch. Not a breath. Jason swung the flashlight at it. The beam hit its face, and the creature's skin rippled, almost melting away before reforming. Its mouth opened slowly, showing teeth long enough to carve wood. A wet, guttural hiss escaped, vibrating the branches around it. The forest reacted instantly. Roots twisted out of the ground like living serpents. Branches bent downward, lowering like skeletal arms. Leaves shuddered violently without wind. And from every direction, the same whisper rose. Layered, overlapping, hundreds of voices. "Stay, stay, stay," Sophie screamed, grabbing Mark's wrist. "This place, it's alive. It's alive." A thick root shot upward, wrapping tightly around Jason's ankle. He fell hard, flashlight skidding across the soil. Shadows surged toward him like a swarm of insects. He clawed at the root, panic ripping through him. "Help me! Help me!" Mark lunged forward, pulling at Jason's arms. Lila kicked at the root, tears streaming down her cheeks. Sophie grabbed the flashlight, shining it on the root, and gasped. The root flinched. Not like a plant, like an animal. It recoiled from the light, loosening slightly. Jason kicked free, scrambling back to his feet. "Flashlight, keep it on them," he yelled. But the battery indicator blinked red. The beam flickered. The creature took 2 silent steps forward, closing the distance in an instant. Its face twisted into a grotesque grin, lips stretching too far, splitting at the corners. A deep rumble rolled from its chest, low, hungry, eager. The flashlight flickered again. The shadows rose. The roots moved. And the forest exhaled, hot, putrid breath sweeping across their faces. Sophie gagged, covering her mouth. "Oh God, something died here." Lila shook her head violently. "No, something is dying here." The creature leaned forward, inches from the edge of the shrinking flashlight beam, eyes glowing, mouth trembling with anticipation. The light sputtered, once, twice. And the forest leaned closer. The flashlight flickered violently, fighting for its last breath of power. Every stutter in the beam made the creature lurch closer, its shadow stretching over the ground like a thin, trembling stain. Jason shook the light desperately, whispering, "Don't die, don't die." It died. For one horrifying second, total darkness swallowed them. Not normal darkness, but a thick, suffocating, living darkness. A darkness that crept into their ears and pressed against their eyes. Sophie screamed first, a sharp, panicked cry. Lila grabbed her, trembling uncontrollably. Mark's heartbeat pounded so loudly he felt it in his throat. Jason spun, arms stretched out, trying to find anything, anyone. But there was only the soundless void. Then came the breathing. Slow, deep, wet. Right behind them, a cold, thin hand brushed Sophie's hair. She shrieked, jerking away, crashing into Mark. "It touched me, it touched me." The darkness shifted, like something giant moved inside it. A whisper slid across their ears, almost playful. "I see you." Jason fumbled for the flashlight, slamming it against his palm. The beam burst back to life for a split second, just long enough to reveal the creature inches from them. Its face was twisted with hunger, jaws unhinged, long fingers curled inward like hooks. The beam died again. Sophie sobbed uncontrollably now. We're going to die here. No, Mark hissed, grabbing her wrist. Move. We have to move. They ran blind through the darkness, tripping over roots, slamming into trees. Bark scraped their arms. Branches whipped their faces. Shadows clung to their skin like cobwebs. Behind them, the creature moved without sound, but they felt it. Its presence pressed against their backs like cold breath. Every step they took, it was closer. Every stumble, it closed the distance. Lila's foot slammed into a fallen branch, and she collapsed with a cry. My ankle! Sophie turned back instantly, screaming, Get up! Please, get up! Jason dropped beside her, pulling her up, but the darkness shifted again, and two glowing eyes snapped open right above them. The creature dropped from the branches like a shadow falling from the sky. Its limbs unfolded long and crooked, mouth opening wider, wider, until it looked like it would split its skull. Lila's scream tore through the forest, raw and blood-freezing. Mark grabbed a thick branch and swung with all his strength. The branch cracked against the creature's arm. But the sound wasn't wood breaking. It was bone. The creature's bone. The arm bent backward, wrong and unnatural, but it didn't react. It didn't even flinch. Instead, it leaned close to Mark's face, its teeth inches from his skin, and whispered with a voice like dead leaves. You hurt me. Your turn. Jason dragged Lila away, screaming for them to run. The creature straightened, limb dangling uselessly, head tilting with grotesque curiosity. The darkness thickened again. The whispers rose, and something bigger moved deeper in the forest. Something even the creature seemed to fear. The air changed. Not just colder, heavier, thicker, like the forest itself was holding its breath. The creature stopped moving. Its head snapped upward, eyes widening, mouth closing slowly as if silenced by something far more powerful. Its broken arm dangled lifelessly, but its body trembled, not with hunger this time, with fear. Mark stepped back, shaking. What's happening? No one answered, because none of them had ever heard silence sound like this. A silence that felt alive, watching, waiting. The forest floor vibrated, faint at first, then stronger, making roots shiver and loose soil ripple under their feet. Lila clung to Jason's sleeve, her voice barely a whisper. Something else is here. A low, rumbling thud echoed in the distance. Then another. Slow, heavy, rhythmic, like footsteps from something far too large to exist in a forest. Sophie's breath hitched. It's coming toward us. The creature that had stalked them all night stepped backward. Backward. Its unblinking eyes darted across the trees, frantic, scanning the shadows as if searching for an escape. Another thud. Stronger. Closer. The trees shook violently, leaves raining down like shattered pieces of darkness. The creature hissed, long, sharp, terrified, and melted into the shadows, disappearing as if devoured by the darkness itself. Jason stared at the empty space where it had stood. If that thing is scared, what the hell is coming? A deep growl rolled across the forest, vibrating through the air, shaking their bones. It wasn't animal. It wasn't human. It was something ancient. Something that had lived here long before the forest had a name. Roots twisted violently, ripping from the ground, writhing like massive snakes. One wrapped around Jason's ankle, but loosened immediately, as if even the forest didn't want to anger whatever approached. The mist thickened, swirling high like ghostly smoke. And through it, something moved. A massive shadow, taller than the trees. Arms that scraped the forest floor. A shape that shifted, twisted, as if its form couldn't decide what it truly was. Two enormous eyes glowed from the fog. Not red like before, but a sickening, pale yellow, wide and pulsing like living lanterns. Sophie staggered back, her voice breaking. No, this can't be real. The shadow leaned forward, and the ground cracked beneath it. A low, guttural breath washed over them, hot, humid, smelling of rot so strong it burned their throats. Lila gagged, tears streaming. What is that thing? Mark couldn't speak. His tongue felt glued to the roof of his mouth. His chest tightened, because, for a single, horrifying moment, he saw its face clearly through the mist. A massive skull-like head with hollow cheeks. A mouth that opened sideways, stretching wider and wider. Teeth like stone shards, uneven and broken. Skin stretched tight over bone. twitching like something moved underneath it. The giant creature lowered itself slightly, sniffing the air, searching, hunting. Its breath grew sharper, faster, hungrier, and then its gaze locked directly onto them. The giant creature's pale yellow eyes fixed on them with a horrifying stillness, cold, empty, starving. Sophie felt her knees weaken. It sees us, she whispered, voice trembling so hard her words almost fell apart. The monster leaned closer, its enormous skull-like head tilting with slow, calculated precision. Its sideways, opening mouth stretched wider, revealing rows of jagged stone-like teeth grinding softly together, each grind echoing like a bone being snapped. A deep growl rumbled in its chest, vibrating through the soil beneath their feet. Lila clutched Jason's arm so tightly her nails dug through his skin. Jason, it wasn't hunting the other one. The forest was hiding that from us. Jason swallowed hard, eyes locked on the impossible shape emerging fully from the mist. No, it was hiding us from it. The creature straightened, towering, massive, its long arms dragging through the leaves, carving deep lines in the ground. Its shadow swallowed theirs completely. Then it moved. Not fast, not slow, but with a monstrous certainty, each step cracking roots and snapping branches like dry twigs. Mark grabbed Sophie's wrist. "Run!" he shouted, pulling her toward the narrowest gap between two thick trees. The others followed, but the forest reacted instantly. Branches whipped downward, roots shot upward, forming a tangled wall as if denying them escape. Lila screamed as a thick branch grazed her shoulder, tearing through her jacket. "It's trapping us. It's blocking every path." Jason turned sharply, scanning for any opening, but the trees kept shifting, closing, twisting, bending, like a living cage forming around them. The creature let out a long, deep exhale, and the ground shook. Leaves lifted off the forest floor from the sheer force of its breath. A voice, low, distorted, primal, rumbled through the air, a language they couldn't understand, but the meaning was unmistakable. "You belong to this forest now." The monster lowered itself on all fours, its massive limbs bending with sickening cracks. Its head pushed forward between the trees, its breath washing over them like a wave of rot. Sophie gagged, stumbling back into Mark. "That smell, God," she choked. Mark forced her behind him, shielding her. "Don't look at its eyes," he whispered. "Don't let it see fear." But it was too late. The monster already saw everything. Jason spotted a faint glow to their left, a tiny break in the darkness. "Light! There's light!" he shouted. He yanked Lila toward it, dragging her limping form across roots and fallen branches. They ran, or tried to. Every step felt heavier. Every breath felt stolen. The forest kept tightening, whispering, groaning, pushing them toward the center, toward the creature. A tremendous roar exploded behind them, so loud it rattled their ribs and nearly dropped them to their knees. Jason screamed, "Go!" But as they sprinted toward the faint glow, the giant creature lunged forward, its massive hands slamming into the ground inches behind them, claws sinking deep into the soil. The ground burst open. The forest roared, and the creature began to climb after them. The ground heaved beneath their feet as the creature's massive limbs clawed through roots and soil, shaking the forest with every step. Branches whipped their faces, roots twisted like living serpents, and the mist swirled violently around them, almost trying to trap them in place. Sophie stumbled over a gnarled root, crashing into Mark. I can't keep going," she gasped, lungs burning. "Move!" Mark snapped, dragging her along. The faint glow from earlier flickered ahead, a small clearing, barely enough space to breathe. They lunged toward it, the forest groaning and shifting with unnatural life, as if the trees themselves were alive and conspiring to stop them. Behind them, the creature's roar split the night, a deafening, bone-shaking sound. Its hands smashed the ground so hard the soil cracked, chunks of earth flying at their feet. The yellow eyes glowed like pale lanterns, fixed unblinkingly on them. Lila's ankle twisted as she ran, a scream ripping from her throat. Jason grabbed her arm, pulling her up, but the creature was closer now. Every step it took left deep craters in the ground, forcing them to dodge and stumble. The forest seemed to tighten, branches reaching down like skeletal fingers, mist curling around their legs, slowing them. Sophie's eyes widened in horror. It's faster than we are. The creature lunged again, its massive hand slamming down so close to Mark that dirt and leaves exploded in every direction. The shockwave knocked them off balance, sending Sophie tumbling to the forest floor. She hit hard, pain shooting through her ribs, but she forced herself up, teeth gritted. Jason swung a broken branch at the creature as it lunged again. The branch snapped against its arm. Not bone, not flesh, but something dense and unearthly. The creature recoiled slightly, letting out a low, guttural hiss, then advanced again, slower now, but unstoppable, with that silent, monstrous certainty. They reached the clearing. A faint light glimmered in the distance, moonlight cutting through a gap in the twisted canopy. It was small, barely enough, but it was hope. Mark took Sophie's hand, dragging her forward. Come on, we're almost there. But the forest fought back. Roots shot up like spears, tangling around their feet. Branches whipped at their heads, scratching, tearing. And the creature followed relentlessly, massive shadows stretching across the misty ground. Lila screamed as she tripped over another root, falling face first. The creature's shadow hovered above her for a terrifying second. Then, a blinding crash of light. A tree had split just behind them, lightning striking it mid-air, fire igniting its bark. The creature hissed, recoiling from the sudden blaze. The glow created a small corridor, enough for them to push forward. Panting, bloodied, trembling, the friends scrambled through the gap, one after another, dragging each other towards safety. The forest seemed to shrink, compressing, whispering in rage as the creature stopped at the edge of the firelight, crouched low, and glared at them. Its yellow eyes burned with an intelligence that chilled them to the bone. Then, without a sound, it turned and vanished into the black depths of the forest, leaving behind only the echo of its roar and the suffocating stench of decay. The friends collapsed in the clearing, hearts pounding, lungs heaving, mud and blood covering them. Silence returned, tentative, uneasy, but they knew better than to relax. The forest had let them live for now, and deep in the shadows, something else waited, watching, patient. If you enjoyed this horror story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell icon for more terrifying stories.